So today what I want to talk about is India, the various types of COVID mutations that are encountered there, the disaster that's unfolding with all the casualties, and asymmetrical possibilities. Now, I watched Canadian Prepper's video where he talked about India and the implications of COVID and the mass cremations and the huge amount of casualties, plus the casualties that are not being counted. And what I want to do is look at it from another perspective. Now, COVID-19, whether the original pandemic was a deliberate release, an accidental release, or a naturally occurring plague, we don't really know the answer to that. Now, personally, I think it was released deliberately. Most people think it was an accidental release, but for the purpose of this discussion, it doesn't really matter. Now, a lot of these mutations that are coming out, everybody assumes that they're naturally occurring, and that may not actually be the fact. Because with today's science, the manufacturing capability in biowarfare, and once you apply asymmetrical principles to that, you could have the COVID-19 viruses with the original mutations circulating around the world, and various groups, militaries, and countries could take advantage of this. And they could actually release engineered strains of COVID-19 and make them biologically targeted to certain populations. Now, with the genetics information and DNA information that's available now, there's a lot of profiles available in various populations. So we can look at the Indian population, the US population, and the Chinese population. And we take into account that all of these countries have experimented with race-specific biological weapons based upon the biological DNA makeup of their enemies. This is the modern capability for genocide. With the amount of DNA data that was taken up, where everybody's voluntarily giving in their data, their DNA, and this is all being compiled and sold, there are some nefarious forces that are actually buying and collecting this data. And nobody really knows the intended use of this data and who's using it for good and who's using it for bad. So we have two possibilities here nobody's discussing. Number one, we can have specifically engineered mutations of COVID-19 that various military organizations and political entities are releasing in target countries. And they're using the existing COVID epidemic as a cover for specifically targeting different countries. Now, the main problem with biological attacks are you can't control them, and you can't control the spread of it. So if you release an enhanced virus, it's eventually going to come back to your population. So one way to avoid that is to have DNA-specific designed bioweapons. So it is theoretically possible that you could design a 2 or 3 mutation organism virus that's targeted to specific DNA profiles. So it is possible that a DNA specific mutation of COVID-19 could be designed and unleashed against the population. And what nobody has discussed to date is what the probability of that is. So right now in India, you have a COVID-19 mutation that is a dual mutation, and now you have a triple mutation. And nobody is discussing the possibility that these could actually be engineered and released on purpose. So you can't make any real definite predictions about the future of COVID-19 without first determining whether all these mutations are naturally occurring or they're engineered, because an existing pandemic is an excellent cover for introduction of biological weapons against target populations. So when you're making your survival preparations, you're forecasting future events and what you will need, you need to look at the two possibilities. One, this is naturally occurring mutations, or two, this is a engineered mutation that's specifically targeting populations. And the outcome of those two possibilities is very different, and your preparations would be different. So please share your thoughts, comment, subscribe. We'll see you on the next video.